JoJolion is very experimental. Araki did a lot of new things in this part. Rock humans, beetle fights, people fighting over plants, and giving us a mysterious protagonist. But before I go all in on Josuke, there's some other things I want to talk about before that. The first thing is the topic of family. Family is very important in pretty much all parts of JoJo's, and even more so in part 8, because the story surrounds the Higashikata family. Now I felt that most of the family members weren't really all that important. They were just kind of there throughout the story. Hato, Daya, and Joshu, they get introduced and then they have like one fight and then they aren't really used all that much. I mean, Joshu, he is pretty memorable, but that's only because he's a horrible person. Some of his actions are just straight up disturbing and he's very selfish. But what I thought was the most interesting part about this family was Norisuke and Jobin Higashikata. Norisuke is a good father, and you could say the same for his eldest son, Jobin. They only want the best for their family. What's important though is how Norisuke and Jobin want to break their family's curse, because that's where they differ. Jobin, being influenced by his mom Kato, will ignore morals and go so far as to hurt his own father. Even though Norisuke's and Jobin's motivations are the same, it was interesting that they still came into conflict. Throughout the story, Jobin became more intense and it actually turned out to be a great antagonist. The only problem with this is the actual main antagonist, Toru. Toru is a weird villain for me. He shows up right at the very end of JoJolion with no real build-up or anything like that besides him just being related to Yasuho. But other than that, he's never really mentioned throughout the story. I really wish he got fleshed out more because I have a hard time understanding what Araki was going for while writing him. He does give a speech about memories and what's left after someone is gone. But yeah, I really just have a hard time understanding what Araki was going for. For me, there just isn't a whole lot of tension between Toru and Josuke. That may just be because the whole entire Higashikata family gets involved with Toru, but it just never feels like Josuke and Toru contrast with each other very well. With him being brought in so late into the story, I had a hard time feeling a sense of rivalry that I've seen with the other antagonists in JoJo's, so I guess that's why I'm not a huge fan of him. I do like his stand, Wonder Review, and its power with Calamity. I think that's a very interesting concept in this SBR universe and how it's a replacement for Fate in the original universe. Araki introducing a really big concept such as Calamity, it makes me really curious about what's going to be happening in the JoJo lands, because it's really easy to notice that Araki definitely has a formula when it comes to writing villains, or yeah, the big bad antagonists, because they usually have some super crazy and busted stand ability, and seeing how Toru, his stand is kind of better than Valentine's, I'm curious to see how Araki's going to one-up himself in the next part. With Toru, we also got to learn about the rock humans, where they're born, how they are raised, and really what they are. They are a completely separate species from normal humans. When they are born, their mother leaves them out in the forest, and then they are picked up by bees and raised in a beehive. When they reach a certain age, they break out of this beehive because they grow a whole lot, and they assimilate into human civilization. The nature of them is also kind of weird. They're very independent, and the only reason they get in groups is to benefit themselves. They're a very big part of JoJolion because they're a really big faction in, the plot and everything. It's definitely one of the things that makes me say that this part is very experimental with what it does, because just adding a whole separate race of humans, I'm pretty sure it happened before with cars or something like that, but yeah, it's still rock humans. It just made this part super crazy. Now moving on from the rock humans, another character I want to talk about is Yasuho Hirose. From her last name, it's easy to see that she's a replacement for Toichi, but obviously she is still very different. She is the deuteragonist, and after coming off of part 7 with Gyro, I feel like it's very hard to live up to that. I still feel like she's a good character, but it doesn't seem like she has a lot of moments to shine. With Gyro, he was kind of a mentor and also a friend to Johnny, and there was a super large focus between them. But with Yasuho, I feel like she isn't focused on too much, and that's probably due because there's a whole bunch of characters. I mean, again, with the Higashikata family, there's like 7 of them. So with all the characters we get introduced to, it feels like Araki spread himself too thin. Now, a character who does get a lot of focus throughout this part, as they should, is the protagonist, Josuke Higashikata, or this new universe's Josuke. There was definitely a lot of things to see throughout this part. We had rock humans, the Rokakaka fruit, and the Higashikata family and their curse. But the thing that really made me like JoJolion was Josuke's development throughout the story. When we first meet Josuke, he's coming out of the ground with no memories of who he is or what he's doing. He doesn't even remember his name. And it's this mystery that Araki sets up, Josuke going out to look for who he is, that got me super invested in the story right away. And what really surprised me is that this mystery gets solved around halfway through the story. We see that Josuke is actually a combination of 2 guys, Josefumi Kujo and Kara Yoshikage. They underwent equivalent exchange, so yeah, they're what make up Josuke. I actually thought they were both really interesting characters. Seeing Josefumi, how he feels about his mom and the effect his mom has on him, it's a very sad thing. And then with Kara Yoshikage, he very easily caught my attention, mainly just because he's this universe's Kara. And then seeing his family tree, how he's a descendant of Johnny, I really liked how Araki used the history between SBR and JoJolion. In this universe, even though, you know, Johnny is long gone, I really like to see how his actions were connected to, you know, JoJolion. Just seeing how all the dots were being connected, even all the way up until the end with Lucy Steele, it just added a whole nother layer to JoJolion that I actually really ended up liking. And also all the callbacks to the original universe, you know, having JoJolion being set in Morio with the protagonist as Josuke Higashikata, and then Josuke being a mix of Kara Yoshikage and Josefumi Kujo. It really gave me a whole nother level of appreciation for Araki, and, you know, just reading these 8 parts, seeing all the different connections, it was really cool. Now with Kara, I like to see that he's a Joestar, and he also has the same good heart that, you know, most of them do. He is still a bit weird, but the biggest thing with Kara is actually his mom, Holly Yoshikage. After we learn of Josuke's backstory, how he came to be with Kara and Josefumi undergoing equivalent exchange, I was really wondering why there were still like a whole nother 50 chapters left. I thought the story should have finished there, or, you know, at least be coming to a conclusion around there. And reading on, it's actually near the end where I really started to like Josuke. His story slowly becomes less and less about his past and more about who he is in the present. And it's only after he officially meets Kara's mom, Holly, that he really starts to find out who he is. When Josuke does meet Holly, it's one of my favorite moments in JoJolion. It's honestly just very beautiful. It's also kind of funny because in SBR, fatherhood was a very big thing, and then in this part, motherhood is kind of the big thing. We see a whole lot of characters affected by it. There's Jobin, Josefumi, Kara, Norisuke, and Josuke. That's definitely something we see get played upon a whole lot in JoJolion. But yeah, after meeting Holly, we start to see Josuke really realizing who he is. He has a super big showdown with Toru, and it's really the ending where we get to see one of the biggest character moments for Josuke. After going through a very tough and emotional journey, Josuke is able to find his identity as Josuke Higashikata. He's able to come to terms with not having any memories of the past, and also that he isn't Kara or Josefumi. He's his own person. And then seeing when he's at the Higashikata fruit parlor where everyone is making him choose a cake, it was really nice to see that the Higashikatas accepted him as part of their family. Josuke was able to find his place in the world. So there's definitely a lot to focus on in JoJolion. There's a lot of stuff, you know, just mixed in together. We had the weird antagonist Toru, we had the Higashikata family breaking their curse. But my favorite part about JoJolion is definitely Josuke finding out about his past and also finding his own identity. I don't know what it is with Johnny and this alternate Josuke, and really just this alternate universe, but JoJolion and Steel Ball Run feel much more emotional than the other parts, at least to me. That's how I see it. And that's the reason why I'm really looking forward to seeing what the JoJo lands have to offer. I know Araki can create some very very beautiful and impactful stories, so I'm really going to be expecting a lot from the JoJo lands. It's just so crazy to me that this series has been going on for so long. It's just amazing, and I'm very happy to finally start reading while, new chapters of a JoJo part is coming out. So I'll go check out the JoJo lands. Also, if I sound a little different, that's because my mic broke and I'm using a new one right now. So I hope the quality isn't trash. I really hope not. But thanks for watching. See you in the next one, and peace.